beginning my series here discussing women's health, and not just because I am a female myself. I'm absolutely delighted to see women's health as one of the key top 10 health and nutrition trends for 2023, because it is an area that has been under researched for a long time. And when we look at what happens throughout a woman's life, I think you can probably safely say there's very little period where women are actually stable, because going if we look at youth during adolescence is a key period in a woman's life. So for instance, 80% of osteoporosis cases globally happen in females. And while osteoporosis is a chronic disease that occurs later on in life, women lay down their bones, and they lay down, we'll say, the risk factors for osteoporosis very early in life. So during adolescence, there's a high requirement for calcium for females, and some innovations in how we get calcium into meals, particularly as people choose more vegan-based options, etc., could be very important in the future. But then as we look as women transition through life, women go through reproductive periods, which of course places a greater emphasis on iron requirements. Women then, some choose to have children, in which case they have increased requirements when they're pregnant, additional requirements for lactation. And then as women graduate through life, we'll say, and sometimes beginning in their late 30s and early 40s, start going through the perimenopause period, the premenopause period, then the menopausal period, and the postmenopausal period, and then into old age. And old age is now split between early old age and late old age. So there's a whole variety of categories of women. And previously, women were often looked at as a homogenous group, and a lot of nutritional targets were basically looking at women having a stable period throughout life, with some special considerations for pregnancy and lactation, but relatively little for the other periods throughout life. Over the last few years, there has been greater consideration. Certainly, more products have been coming on the market that have focused on menopausal requirements of females. But there are many other considerations when we look at some of the gender differences between males and females, and what happens throughout life and how that impacts on their nutritional requirements. So, for instance, we know that men and women have different cardiovascular disease rates. As I mentioned earlier, they have different bone health requirements. The majority of osteoporotic cases are in females, and there are a range of different diseases which may impact women and men differently. Also, women tend to have a longer life expectancy than men, and therefore that places greater emphasis on looking at their health throughout the entire life cycle. But there are some complications when we consider what we know about women, because women have been under researched for years. And when we look at the health science literature, for instance, one of the examples we'd often use is for people to think about, how would you describe a heart attack happening in someone? And nearly always the example that people would say is, oh, somebody would clutch their heart. But what we actually know is that symptom is a male symptom. And in fact, in women, if they're having a heart attack, some of the early symptoms actually is gastrointestinal distress. So sometimes they have severe stomach ache. And some of the reasons that heart attacks get misdiagnosed in women is because of the lack of research that we have in females. But thankfully, over the last few years, that has been changing. And as a result, we're getting to find out far more information about the health and nutritional requirements of females throughout their life cycle. Now, this has some important implications for innovations in food. For example, we know post-menopause that some women have significant changes in their taste perception. Some women suffer from severe dry mouth, but also some females completely change the types of foods that they might prefer, and also have an increased requirement for different supplements or maybe some novel botanicals to support those changes. So there are lots of opportunities for food innovation and nutritional innovation in the women's health space. And also, we can consistently put a call out for people to consider doing more research in females, so that we can add to the evidence base to support the developments in this area. One of the other key trends at the moment is this concept of advanced activity. And really, I suppose this is taking us beyond the consideration of just looking after our muscles. So, for a long time, when we would have considered activity, it was to support muscle growth at all stages. And that is still very, very important. As we all age, we need to maintain muscle mass, because we know that maintaining muscle mass has a significant impact on both quality of life and also the ability to live independently longer. So, it's still very important to maintain muscle mass and to keep that as a key focus. But we're also seeing far more people interested in activity at all age categories and across both genders. And what we're also seeing is that everybody is doing every type of exercise. So, what I mean by that is that previously there would have been stereotypical images around people that were interested in resistance training, and it might have been looked at a particular stage in life. But we're now seeing that in all stages of life and in both genders, people are doing cardiovascular training, aerobic training, and also doing resistance training. And while individuals are doing that to support, to develop muscle and to keep themselves healthy, they're also very, very interested in how the exercise and activity that they're doing supports their joint health and how they manage that joint health and inflammation. And as a result, the nutritional categories that are of real interest in this area are offsetting inflammation. So, how do we manage inflammation? But also, a lot of individuals in this activity category are asking, how can I ensure that I have the energy for my next training session? And how can I ensure that I recover properly from that training session? So, to ensure that we're managing inflammation, joint health, and recovery in this category. The other thing that we are seeing, I suppose, is less of an emphasis on aesthetics. And at last, we're moving away from this concept of activity and exercise simply to look a particular way, and focusing far more on what are the aspects of activity that support our health. So, strength training to improve our muscle mass and improve our joint health, cardiovascular training to improve our heart and ensure that we're aerobically fit, but no longer having that training synonymous with a particular physique or a particular image.